everybody. Welcome to the D5 Housing and Transportation Forum, hosted by Aura and partner organizations. I'm Felicity Maxwell. I'm one of the organizers tonight. I'm also with Friends of Zilker. We're excited about a great forum, but obviously you're not here to listen to me talk. You're here to listen to all these folks talk. So I'm actually going to introduce you to our moderator. Jack, why don't you take it away?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Craver. I write the Austin Politics newsletter. You can subscribe at austinpolitics.net. Well, we'll just get started right away. We got 5 candidates. We're going to give them about 2 minutes each for an introductory statement, and then after that, we'll just dive right into the issues, and we'll give them about a minute each to respond. So we'll alter up the.
A plug already.
All right, Ryan Alter, go ahead.
Hello. Oh. Yep. Let's try on.
Can you hear me? There we go. Hello. Yes, I am Ryan Alter, running for District 5. Really, just because I think we can do better on a whole host of issues. You know, we need leaders who believe Austin's best days lie ahead, and who will implement plans and policies to really make that a reality. I was born here, met my wife here, we started our family here, and I just really worry about whether or not that's going to be accessible to everyday Austinites much longer. You know, I don't have to tell you that we're in the middle of an affordability crisis largely of our own making, because you feel it every day. You know, whether you're a homeowner who's trying to keep up with rising property taxes, a renter who sees your rent skyrocketing year after year. It's a real problem that impacts all of us. And if we want to finally address this challenge, we need leaders with the experience to tackle it on day one. And we just cannot afford one more day of inaction. So when I graduated from law school, I went to work for Senator Watson to fight for progressive policies that would lift up our entire community, and that's an effort I continue today as the General Counsel to Senator Hinojosa, where we fight for Texas families every day to ensure everyone has access to quality health care, great local public schools, and can afford to live in their community. And I truly believe there is no issue too big for Austin to solve with the right vision and the right leadership, and I'm running for City Council because I'm ready to be part of the solution and hope to earn your vote.
Why don't we go on to Bill?
Hello everyone, I'm Bill Welch. I live in Onion Creek. I've lived in the district since 1984. I moved here with the United States Air Force, and first down on Brody Lane, then down this way, and ultimately over to Onion Creek. My son Ben is here with me tonight, and he and his wife Ellie live just across the street on Manchac Road here, or just down the ways there. I'm running because I'm frustrated and really disappointed by the lack of priorities exhibited by our current city council, the decisions that have been made to undermine a lot of the great things about our community, and that there is a better way ahead, and that the future of Austin is very bright, but it is going to require quality leadership. So what I have to offer you is I'm a retired leader. I'm a retired Air Force General Officer. I'm a retired business leader and businessman, I guess CEO of a company here in town. And then I'm a retired entrepreneur. Started a robotics company back in 2016 after retiring from the Air Force. Started out in one little office. And today it's 60,000 square feet, 60 employees, $60 million valuation, quite an enterprise. And we're really proud of it. But here's the issue. And I see it every day for these young entrepreneurs that are trying to start a business. We started in that one little office. We got 2 little offices. Then we had to go out and get a bigger office. And when we went out to get a bigger office, we were going to shut the company down because we couldn't afford to grow anymore. It's just too expensive out there. So it not only is affordability an issue that we deal with in our homes every day, it's an issue for growth of business and enterprise and opportunity for Austinites. And so I think across the spectrum we can do better on affordability. And I plan to be that person to help you get there. That's it for me. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ken Craig. I am also running for District 5, obviously. I have spent the last 7.5 years serving Austin as a senior policy advisor in the District 5 office. I am running because, like you, I know that we are at our best when everyone, regardless of who they are or where they live, is fully supported and completely engaging in the economic prosperity and cultural life of our city. That means affordable places to live, do business, develop and express your creativity, and it means access to transit. It means real work on public health and public safety, meaning people have access to health care, healthy food, support for families, and that no matter where you are or who you are safe in public and in your home. It also means that we are going to care for, nurture, expand, and protect our natural environment as well as our cultural environment. Pardon me. I've lived in South Austin for 23 years. I have decades of community involvement. I have been endorsed by the Austin Firefighters Association, the AFL-CIO Central Labor Council, the Workers Defense Action Fund, Council members Kitchen, Poole, Tovo, Renteria, State Rep Cheryl Cole, County Commissioners Ann Howard and Bridget Shea, Sheriff Sally Hernandez, and also Constable Stacy Suits, and I would be honored to earn your support as well. I want to bring my heart, my experience, and my knowledge to our shared work ahead. Thank you.
You'll get first next question.
So my name is Webman. I am also running for District 5 City Council. I moved here in 2019, so I'm comparatively very new to the city. And when I'm knocking on doors, a lot of people ask me, are you actually an Austinite? And I always ask, what makes an Austinite? I've had 2 kids here. They're 2 years and 6 months old. They're born here. I'm hoping that you guys can consider them Austinites. And I'm kind of doing this because I'm really worried about their future. I have a very full life outside of politics, but I'm right now very much wanting to sacrifice that part of my life to make sure that we actually try to do things here in this city that we failed to do from where we came from. Places like Los Angeles and San Francisco that I used to live in and spend a lot of time in are complete failures. San Francisco has become a monolith of elites and very wealthy people. It's not socioeconomically diverse, and it's in large part because of really lofty sounding policies that sound really, really good and then actually wreak havoc on all the communities that we had over there. And we get here to Austin, my wife and I, before we have kids. And so I'm an immigration lawyer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, and we love this city. We love its creative soul. We love everything about every experience we're having. We love the community that we've been forming. And we noticed that this city is starting to imitate a lot of the very key policies that led to the destruction of the places that we came from. And this, I'm obviously, is there a sound issue?
Yeah, we didn't think about this.
No worries.
Keep going. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Never mind. There we go.
As a,
Just plug it in when you're ready.
as a city council candidate, you're not running to be president of the city. You're running to be one of 10 city council people. 11 if you count the mayor, because you're basically voting with 11 people on the key issues that the city is facing. I am very clearly an outsider, both politically and otherwise. And if there were 10, insiders, or I'm sorry, 10 outsiders running in this race, I would say vote for the insider. But I'm just I could be a very different perspective and different voice with private sector experience that is completely different than everyone else on this panel, frankly.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for having me here today. I wanted to ask y'all a question first. Who here is this your first time hearing from the candidates or learning about us? Awesome. Well, this is great. So I just want to thank Aura and Rethink 35 and Safe Streets and all the groups who work to bring us together. It really is important for democracy that people get to hear all of their candidates and get to learn about all of us. My name is Stephanie Bazan, and I'm running for Austin City Council District 5. I'm a mom, I'm a native Austinite, and I'm proud of that, and I am one of you. Just like you, last year I was doing my own thing. And I realized that I wanted to change some things that were going on in the city. A recent study came out that a lot of people in Austin don't think we're headed in the right direction. And they want something new, they want change, and I want to be a part of that. I love this city. Austin is a great place to live, work, and play, but that is not the story for everybody. That is not the case for many of our hard workers, our EMS, our teachers, and we all know that, but we need to do something about that. I want to make sure that people in our city can continue to live here and not just live to survive, but thrive. That is really important to me. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it's important to me that they see themselves in the future of the city. And the fight that I'm taking to City Council is the same fight that I am taking for my children. We have a mantra at home, and it's be bold and be brave. And so I stepped into the arena to be bold and be brave for my kiddos, and I will do the same for you. I've got a lot of experience. I've been in public service nearly my whole life. I'm part of the Lamone family, and so I was at marches and different advocacy events from when I was a tiny kid who couldn't walk. I just was in a pouch with my mom. So this is nothing new to me, this type of service. It's just more public. So you'll see if you go to my social media that there's a lot going on. That is not the usual stuff, to take pictures and selfies of what I'm doing. But I'm doing it to show you that I show up, and I will continue to show up. Just recently, I was working with Hispanic Impact Fund, and we funded a $1 million across pre-K education, healthcare, and workforce development, and I will continue to do more. I just got the red light, so I'll stop there, but thank you so much.
Sounding?
It's a little reverb.
Okay.
Do you want us to lift it or go further away? It's up to you.
I don't. If it sounds okay to people out.
Thumbs up, who's like?
Now it is. Okay.
Get the microphone farther away from the
What's how many living mixed reviews?
Just scoot-
Let's like scoot back.
Scoot back. Just scoot back, yeah.
Okay.
Because you're too close to the issue. Just like.
Alright, be careful. You got lots of people already.
I'll hang on to it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Test.
Test. All right. There we go. Okay. Opening statements again. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to try to be as fair as possible with who starts first and everything. But if any more mathematically inclined people can help, I do know that Stephanie went last, so you can go first on this question, and it's pretty straightforward. Are we in a housing crisis? If so, what caused it? And what can City Council do to address it?
3 questions. Are we in a housing crisis? Absolutely. What caused it? Not enough homes. And what can we do? We can build more homes. I will speak more to that now that I've answered the 3 questions, because I was trying to hold on to all of those. But we've got different ways that we need to attack this crisis, this really serious issue. One is there's the housing bond that's up. I know that not everybody is happy about that bond being up, but I would encourage you to read about it, see what it's going to bring, and see how it's going to help with deeply affordable housing. I know another question around that is what have our past bonds done, and you can also learn about that because there is data on it. I know we can be more accountable about how we spend those tax dollars or those dollars, but I do think that this is part of the solution, is to have that deeply affordable housing. We do need to increase our housing stock, and we need to look at places where people are already agreeing that we can do that along our transit corridors. Urban infill is proven to be climate friendly, and so it's really important to look at opportunities where we're not just building homes, but we're meeting our climate justice goals and we're helping people stay here.
Yeah, I think that we're definitely having in the midst of a housing crisis. One of the major issues we're facing is obviously supply and demand. It's really easy to say that we just need more density across the city, and that's a generally true statement, but it's also very easy to to just claim that you can make that happen. It's a very hard thing to do. There's a ton of neighborhood groups that are understandably worried about the character of their neighborhoods rapidly changing overnight after decades of living in Austin. And I think that the truth is that there's no magic wand that can be waved, and that these conversations are going to be very difficult to have, and you have to be as pragmatic as possible in actually debating these things with affordable housing groups. We were talking about that group earlier,
Foundation communities.
Foundation communities. It's a hard, for some reason, it's a hard group to remember. But I spoke to Walter Moreau a little bit about what they've been up to, and I think that's a kind of a cleaner way to initiate great affordable housing sort of initiatives. If there were more groups like that to kind of empower and bring to the city, I think it would be super helpful. But yeah, it's really easy to say. It's true. Being a denser city is environmentally more friendly. It's true that having more housing will decrease housing prices and help this problem. But there's also homestead tax exemptions that we can promote. Is that the 1 minute limit? Okay. There's a lot we can do, but the bottom line is that it's easy to say virtuous sounding things. It's a lot harder in practice to get everyone on board, and that's really you can't vilify the other side in these kinds of discussions.
I would love to be a wise guy and say, no, there's no housing crisis, but then you just boo me off the stage. It's not that funny, because we are in a housing crisis, and particularly a crisis for people of affordable housing, and not just on those income levels of subsidized, but also just in those middle income levels. Here's a couple of things that I would like to do. One is I would like to explore preserving the older multifamily, the 4, 6, 8, 10 plexes that you find, and the older condos that you find in neighborhoods like Zilker, Barton Hills, and Southwood. Also, we need to streamline the permitting process so we can address how much it costs, but how long it costs to develop housing. We can do cross-departmental teams, as I did with Esperanza Community when they were getting started, to get those things done. And what we really need to do is look at, as was mentioned earlier, the corridors. Not just affordable housing, but also the other amenities that make people want to live there that become neighborhood amenities as well. Thank you.
Well, I think it's unanimous. There is a housing crisis. But it's not only the new houses, all right? It's not only the people that are looking to buy a home. I think it's the ones that, like about those of us that are living in an existing home or in an apartment, and recognizing that your taxes go up constantly. Your rent is climbing at an unbelievable rate. Homes next door are selling for outrageous amounts that then affect the property value of the property you're in. And so I think we have to do more in terms of recognizing the burden we place on taxpayers when we assess new taxes, when we increase fees, and that goes also though for the new construction. Take, for example, the parkland dedication fee. It was a big issue. It came up, and they were going to push it through, and then they said, whoa, wait a minute, a lot of pushback. You can't go from $5,000 to $11,000 and not expect it's going to create a problem in the affordability realm. That $6,000 gets passed straight back to the person who buys that home. So.
Housing crisis, absolutely. What caused it? We did. Years and decades of inaction and just nibbling at the problem instead of taking bold, real steps to actually get more housing in our neighborhoods, in all our neighborhoods, right? My take on this is we need more housing for everyone, everywhere. The corridors are great. We need to do a lot of work on the corridors, but it goes beyond that. Subsidized affordable housing is great, but we can't buy our way out of this problem. We have got to increase our stock. We can do it responsibly. We can do it in a way that honors our environmental goals, that makes it so we don't have environmentally harmful sprawl, but we can make our neighborhoods richer and more diverse if we have greater diversity of housing throughout all our neighborhoods. And on the process side of things, our city policies do nothing but disincentivize building anything other than an expensive single-family home, and we have got to rectify those policies.
All right, great. And by the way, that original question should be attributed to Aura, so thank you, Aura. This one is Friends of Zilker, and this is related. So there was a 7-4 majority in favor of adopting a new land development code. It's obviously gotten tangled up in court. Did you support the proposed new LDC, and do you think the 4 council members, including the incumbent in this district, had good reasons to vote against it?
Well, I didn't support it, and in fact, I take issue with the comment made in that if we go into neighborhoods throughout the city and just change the zoning so that their neighborhood structure changes, we're doing a great service to neighborhoods, a disservice to neighborhoods. Is what we should be doing is giving autonomy to the neighborhoods to determine a future that they want. If Zilker wants to remain, as we were talking earlier, a community of old hippies, and there's a way that we can allow that to occur and not drive them out of the neighborhood with rising costs and fees and real estate prices, we should support that. If that's what the neighborhood wants, established neighborhoods should have that right of autonomy. I say the same goes true for the neighborhood I live, down in Onion Creek. I could tell you neighborhoods up and down the road right here do not want us coming in and saying, we're going to put up fourplexes now. We're going to change the nature of your neighborhood and make it more inclusive, when indeed what you're really doing is destroying the natural structure of that neighborhood. Thank you.
Are there actually any old hippies left in Zilker?
Yeah, they were right over there. I thought they were. There's so many. Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh.
Who's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I give up. Go ahead, Ken. Okay.
The land development code is old, it's outdated, it needs to be updated, and it also needs to be updated in a way. Okay, sorry, thank you. Is that better? Okay. Combined with neighborhood district planning, the land development code can work to increase density and diversity of housing and maintain the character of neighborhoods. It requires work. It requires going back to planning to implement zoning rather than zoning for planning. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that we can't plan our way just by changing codes, okay? And I believe that there's no, I don't believe in a win-lose. I don't believe in this this bifurcation that you either are dense or you are opposed to additional housing. I believe that there are contextual ways that we can get involved in this and make these multifamilies be a part of neighborhoods. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, reform is definitely needed. Upzoning is something that's obviously fraught with problems and conflicts. And this is, Ken's right, the kind of thing that you have to work on a case-by-case basis and do the excruciatingly difficult and grinding work of having difficult debates and conversations with people that are opposed to their neighborhoods changing. Again, I'm hopeful that these things can change. I'm hopeful they can change over time. I would be lying if I said we could change it in just 3 to 4 years. But this is certainly one of the most important things we have to be focusing on. We can't become like Houston. We can't just start allowing upzoning everywhere. That would kind of change things too drastically here. But we need to become aggressively. We have to aggressively approach this and really try to have the difficult conversations with anyone who is opposed to it. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to add there.
I'm not sure if everybody here knows, but our code is from the 80s. It's really old. It needs to be updated. That being said, I love neighborhoods. I don't want to ruin what people enjoy and like about their neighborhoods. I want to enhance neighborhoods. If you look at the land rules that were created, they were purposefully exclusionary, and that's not okay. That's not a welcoming city. That's not a place I want to fight for or live. And I know that if we work together, we can create something that is beautiful, that takes neighborhoods into account, that listens to community voices and all community voices, renters and homeowners and people who are part of neighborhood associations. And we can build the city that we want. We need a code that helps us meet the future that we want our Austin to be, not a code that keeps us back. And so that's what I'm going to work towards.
As she said, our code is incredibly backward looking. Austin looks nothing like it did 40 years ago, and yet we continue to be governed by rules that was what Austin used to be. We need to have a code that asks, what do we want Austin to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? And what I've been most frustrated with this council is the very piecemeal and nibbling at the edges approach to our land development code. We will take something that is low-hanging fruit or just at the edge and say, look, you can build in this little area of town, or you can build in this little area of town, which traditionally is East Austin or South Austin, instead of saying we need to make a plan for all of Austin. And it's just beyond, it's beyond time. And your original question was, you know, should council, or really should Councilmember Kitchen have voted for land development or for Code Next? It not doing so has cost us another more than half decade of inaction. And it wasn't perfect, but we need action. All right. Yeah. Okay. This one may seem. All right. All right. Can you hear me now? No. All right. All right. This one is from Friends of Austin Neighborhoods. It's related. It's to the point. Apartments are currently banned in much of Austin's urban core. Where in the urban core should they remain illegal, and why?
Apartments are illegal? Okay. Well, here's what I would say to that. Multifamily is compatible with neighborhoods. It depends on the context, it depends on the location, it depends on the manner. As I was mentioning earlier, I think we really need to do work on preserving some of the existing, the 4, 6, 8 plexes that we have, some of the older condos that are affordable in our neighborhoods. They're sprinkled throughout, especially farther north of here. I also believe that we can integrate multifamily, particularly along the edges of the neighborhoods when we're talking about the transportation corridors and that those kinds of areas. That becomes part of the neighborhood as well. I would like to go back to multifamily, generally speaking. You know, one of the things that was mentioned earlier, and we do need to concern ourselves with incentivizing demolition and reconstruction of single-family homes on large lots, as opposed to getting ourselves a duplex, an ADU, or a fourplex, and create more housing that way. That would be more affordable. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, using terms like ban, like apartments are banned when the zoning just doesn't allow them is, I guess, technically true. But it's kind of the language that is very polarizing and vilifies, you know, other people that may not agree with your specific stance. And I appreciate what fans' perspective is on this. And I think that it makes, actually what Ryan was saying last time about transforming the nature of the entire city really resonates with me. I don't agree that we should like have this idea that there's a one-size-fits-all zoning plan that will just fix Austin, given how diverse and, you know, just vastly different parts of Austin are. But I do think that just planning for just the corners of the neighborhoods will continue the problems that Stephanie was highlighting in actually not creating opportunities for socioeconomic diversity. That said, it's not going to happen overnight. And those people who promise you that it will happen overnight, they're selling you just false promises. It's not possible. But I think that over time we can do a lot better job and try not to use really extreme language like banning unless it's absolutely necessary.
all or nothing answer. I don't think that it's just apartments. I think that we need to look at other opportunities for missing middle and where everyday people can find places to live, because that's who we're hurting, that's who we're pushing off the cliff into, being unhoused and moving from housing to the streets. So I think that we need to look at opportunities for renters and young people, students, seniors who want to age in place and maybe want to downsize. Right now, my mom has a huge home that she had, all of us growing up, and she doesn't need that home anymore, but it's too expensive for her to downsize into a smaller space. She'd have to move to Manor, and heck, I don't know if she'll be able to move to Manor anytime soon, if she waits too long. And so I think it's really important to look at opportunities that we have for that missing middle group. I'll say that again. And it's not going to be done in a day, but we need to start planting those seeds and we need to start moving forward, because our inaction is actually causing an action, and that is deeper into the housing crisis.
So renting is not illegal per se, so much as we don't have multifamily zoning throughout our urban core that allows for someone to just show up and build a 50-unit rental four-story complex. They have to go through an arduous process that is incredibly expensive. You have no idea if you're going to be successful. It's going to take years to do. And so, as I was saying earlier, all we do is disincentivize building something that is not a really expensive product, right? Downtown, what do you see? High-rises with condos that are $1 million plus, and you don't have the availability, or you don't see a lot of apartment stock, except when we have a PUD who will, as part of that negotiation, require some form of rental. What's it now? The Waterline, the new 74-story building, is going to have over 200 rental units. So we can require it and we can put it in our urban core if we choose to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Again, I think you know where I stand. I am absolutely opposed to the idea that we would put apartments in the middle of an existing long-term residential neighborhood. Now, good point. I can agree on certain elements of what I'm hearing, and that's the key about serving on the council, by the way, is agreeing where you can. Put up the apartments on the outsides of the neighborhoods, but make them part of the neighborhood. That's how my neighborhood is. It's a wonderful situation where it is a neighborhood, but I don't have a high-rise next to my house in the neighborhood. I wanted a house in the neighborhood. I don't want to live in Houston. I want to live in Austin, where I have people walk their dogs down the street, and out in the front, my friends that live out in the apartments, we meet up and do things within our neighborhood. That's the way it ought to be. We should not be dictating to neighborhoods. You will have to put in fourplexes and high-rises to take care of our affordable needs. Our affordable needs can be met. Oh, I got to shush. But our affordable needs can be met on those primary transit corridors.
All right. I guess we can do one more question before the break, right? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to transportation. Do you support TxDOT's proposed expansion of I-35? If so, why? If not, why not?
This is a question that I've been learning more about. One of the things I think that city council members are expected to be are general experts in everything. That was what I'm learning. I'm not going to pretend to be completely up to date with what I think about this yet, because Rethink I-35 paid me a visit and taught me a lot about what's happening there. I also got phone calls and Zoom meetings with people who are very much proponents of the expansion. My bias right now is that it seems to be, from what I've been learning, a lot of work to not fix the core of the problem, and it seems to be something that we shouldn't just be biased toward. We have sometimes a problem about being biased towards action, when we really should be super methodical and thoughtful about the consequences of what we're actually building. And if it doesn't make sense, we shouldn't just do it to do something. And that's kind of the same way I feel about Project Connect in general, but also still learning as much as I can about these issues because they're a lot more complicated.
I want to first start out by thanking the Rethink 35 crew who's here. You can see them in their t-shirts back there. I appreciate the fact that y'all brought this issue to the forefront because it's an important thing that we need to talk about. I need to do more learning. I have a meeting set up to do just that, and so I'm excited to hear what y'all have to say. But I will say that when we're talking about what to do with 35, we need to think about, is the plan that we're proposing better than what we have now? Is the idea that we're bringing for 35 going to do better for our Austinites, or is it going to hurt us? I do not think that more lanes will be better for us. There is data that shows that more lanes are not better for us. But I can't sit here and tell you the answer to the issue. What I can say is I think, like most things, it's important to have different people at the table. So Rethink 35 with their plan, the other opportunities that we have, but we also need to recognize that loops and some of the other things that are available are not going to be useful. So thank you for that opportunity.
So I had a great meeting with Adam. This is not a 1-minute question. This is a 1-hour question. But if we are going to make an investment of multi-billions of dollars that we are planning for I-35, it needs to serve our values and our morals as a city. So we know adding lanes is not going to solve the traffic congestion problem. It has never done so, and it won't magically do so here. We know that if we add lanes, we add cars, we add emissions, and that doesn't serve our environmental goals. And there's also just an equity issue baked into this. 35 has literally cemented almost a century of racial inequity in Austin dating back to the 1928 master plan. And we've got to remember that when we are creating our vision and our plan for I-35. I love the vision that y'all have, that Reconnect 35 has. I want to be able to figure out how to make that viable, but it's a long, hard process, and it's more than 1 minute.
Yeah, I hate I-35. I do everything I can to avoid it. I take MOPAC, I take 183, I take SH-130. But I'm one of those guys that been in Austin a long time, used to work in downtown Austin. I said, boy, they've got to do something about I-35. We have to get that thing fixed. And I thought putting in a bunch of lanes was a great idea. And so, yeah, I was all over it. I'm totally for it, except I'm not, because I know that it isn't going to serve us, and I worry about that we spend all that money and it really doesn't improve things. So what is the answer? And I didn't know, but the best answer I heard was what TxDOT was saying, until Adam Greenfield contacted me. And thank you for your time and bending my arm over the telephone, but not at all. Wonderful insights, and I agree. Need to rethink 35. But my suggestion is we need to rethink it quickly because something has to be done. It has to be done today. And so let's think quickly, okay, guys? Thank you.
I think we all agree that the never-ending spiral of additional lanes is a road, to nowhere, and it's not going to solve our issue. I'm really fond of cap and stitch, not just because it seems cool, but because I believe it actually addresses transportation and social justice issues that we face. I also think that that the whole I-35 issue is beyond downtown. For District 5 residents in particular, we all know what happens in our crosstown traffic. The intersections with Slaughter, William Cannon, Old Torf, Stastny are choke points as we try to cross town because of the way it interacts with I-35. Also interacting with I-35 is an important measure in terms of alternative modes of transportation and our transit intersections. And so I think it's a much larger issue than simply trying to throw a bunch of lanes down through downtown, and I'll shush.
I think we're gonna take a break, right, Felicity? All right, we're gonna take a how long? 10-15 minute break. Need to get some water or shot of tequila.
Like this across the districts. So this is actually our third forum. Woohoo! And fourth. But I want to introduce our partners who've been integral, and they're going to tell you a little bit about the work that they do. So let's jump in, Daniel.
Hello, my name is Daniel Kavelman. I am with Farm&City. We are a statewide and also Austin region focused nonprofit doing land use and transportation reform. We are very excited to be working on some land code issues, some transportation issues. We partner with all sorts of groups to work on things like parking minimum reform, Vision Zero Texas, and just a lot of inclusive regional growth strategies to go to Campo, to go to City Council, and go to the Texas legislature to make sure that Texas will be a climate leader, a leader in affordability, and a leader in safety across all modes of transportation and living. Thank you.
Hi everybody, Roger Cobbin with Friends of Austin Neighborhoods. Friends of Austin Neighborhoods is a coalition of neighborhood associations and residents reclaiming the word neighborhood for the voices and to include the full diversity of voices. Fans envision an Austin where all kinds of people can get around by walking, biking, taking public transportation, and where they can live in the home and the neighborhood of their choice. We believe that it's important to have housing diversity, and
We can't hear anything. We need to change it. I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah, that makes louder. But you want to back up. Yeah. Stay away from the speaker.
Roger Cobbin with Friends of Austin Neighborhoods, hoping this works a little bit better. Friends of Austin Neighborhoods is a coalition of neighborhood associations and residents reclaiming the word neighborhood to include the full diversity of voices. Fans envision an Austin where all kinds of people can get around by biking, walking, and taking public transportation, and where they can live in the home and neighborhood of their choice. Thanks.
Howdy, my name is Zach Faddis, and I'm the president of Aura. Aura is an organization that fights for abundant housing for all Austinites and a safe, reliable transportation system. The cost of housing in Austin is far too high. We are seeing shortages of bus drivers, lifeguards, and teachers because working class people are struggling to afford to live in this city. The reasons are well known. In much of our city, we prohibit all but the most expensive form of housing, a detached, single-family home on a large lot. Our housing policy is a devastating failure, and we need a city council brave enough to fix it. Unfortunately, the current system favors the voices of the most privileged landowners who fear departure from the status quo more than they fear rising housing prices. Aura is building a movement to create a city that welcomes all, that provides economic opportunity, freedom of mobility, and abundance to all who wish to call Austin home, both old residents and new. Step one in this vision is electing a pro-housing, pro-transit majority city council. In November, 5 council seats plus the mayor will be up for re-election. Aura will be holding forums, endorsing candidates, and then doing our damnedest to get those candidates elected.
Hey y'all. Hey there. I am Chris Riley. I'm with Safe Streets Austin. And I know you might not have heard of Safe Streets Austin, but I bet you've heard of some of the organizations that preceded Safe Streets Austin. Bike Austin, and Walk Austin and Vision Zero ATX have all teamed up and recently merged because we realized we all share a common passion for seeing our streets become better places. Right now, they tend to be just big, scary things where people are killing each other in these huge, monstrous vehicles. They could be so much more. They could be pleasant places where we can interact with our neighbors, where kids can play, where we can choose to get to our destination in any number of ways that doesn't involve getting into a big, deadly, climate-destroying vehicle. And so cities all over the world are discovering this, especially since the pandemic. People are figuring out we can do so much better with our streets. We experimented with some of that here in Austin during the pandemic. We had the Healthy Streets program, and that's continuing in some form or another. And I still actually enjoyed part of it on my way here on my bike. There was still a remnant of a healthy street up there on South 3rd. But we can do so much more. So many of our streets, the streets right outside your home, the streets where your neighbors live, they could all be pleasant, inviting places, whether or not you're inside a car. And so that's what we are working towards. And we're glad to team up with partner organizations who share some of our interests. And it's so interesting meeting these candidates because I don't know them very well. So I sure appreciate y'all supporting this event because I think it's a great civic thing to take part in. So thank you all so much. And please go to safestreetsaustin.org and sign up. It doesn't cost anything to get on our mailing list just to keep up with what we're up to because we're going to be more and more active. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Greenfield, and I'm with
Rethink Austin!
Rethink 35. Good job, everyone. So Rethink 35 is working every day. It's a grassroots campaign to stop the proposed expansion of I-35 to over 20 lanes. That is the ultimate anti-Project Connect. So we are instead pushing for a positive solution that actually transforms the center of Austin into a place that you would want to go to, that's safe, that's beautiful, that has housing, reliable transportation. So for TxDOT's proposed expansion of I-35 to happen, it doesn't only take people proposing bad things. It takes 100,000 people to be apathetic or to be resigned. Luckily, with this campaign, we are activating people every day who see that a different future is possible. Those people are volunteering with the campaign. They're buying our t-shirts. They're buying our yard signs, which are on sale over there at the Rethink 35 store. And they are seeing that we really can change this. So please get involved. Please make a donation. Please buy a yard sign or a t-shirt. Come and hang out with us at a social. Come and volunteer. But we need every single person because it makes no sense to spend $7 billion on encouraging more people not to drive under Project Connect and then to turn around and spend $5.5 billion to encourage more people to drive with expanding I-35. That's insanity. So you might know Rethink 35 as the organization that's suing TxDOT. Does anyone know that? Yes. So we are suing TxDOT along with TexPerg and Environment Texas. I want to thank all our partners who made that possible. It has put us on the local, regional, and national stage. That's just the beginning of what's possible. So more lanes equals more traffic. More Rethink 35 equals a better future. Let's do this. Get involved. Thank you.
All right, that closes us out for our partners. Again, thank you to everybody who came up and explained who they are, and of course to the folks at Aura for putting this together. We're going to give our candidates 1 to 2 minutes to get some water and then come back up here. And we are hoping to wrap up a little bit like 8:15, 8:20, so this should be, we're closing it out here shortly. And if you have any, thank you.
All right, can everybody hear me well? All right. Candidates, you ready? We're just going to share a mic from now on. All right, we're going to kick off with some more transportation stuff. This is courtesy of the Safe Streets group. When you look at our streets, do you think we need to add space for cars, keep it the way it is, or take space away from cars to give to pedestrians, bicyclists, and public transit? Can you give an example of a road where we should either add car lanes or take them away? All right, who's going?
I don't care. I think I'm supposed to, but it doesn't really matter. Or whatever. So there is no single answer, add, stay the same, remove, right? Every area, every street has its own needs, its own differences. There are definitely areas where we can improve our pedestrian and our bike infrastructure to allow for people to commute throughout the city. And really my goal when I look at our transportation network and our system is to have a network that is allow anybody to get to where they want to go easily. It's accessible, it's reliable, and it shouldn't rely on fossil fuels for one, but really single occupancy if you can avoid it. Now, not everyone can take the bus, not everyone can bike. That's fully understandable, but if we can improve our infrastructure to allow for more people to access those options who want to, that opens the door and makes it easier for those who do still need to use their car to get along and access the city.
It's a hot issue for me. Can I go?
You're next.
Yeah, it's kind of a hot issue for me, and in fact, I was just talking to Chris up there about it, is that I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want both. I want wider roads for cars and bigger lanes for bicycles, and better yet, bicycles and pedestrians, and better yet, I want grade separation. I think when we're putting them down in the same spot with a white pole as the protecting element, we're doing no favors. And what we're doing is we're creating traffic hazards. When we do that, we're squeezing everything in, traffic hazard, and then the bicycles aren't safe because traffic hazards happen and they get into bicycle lanes and all the rest. All right, my cake and eat it too. Wider roads for cars and buses and electric cars, and wider grade separation lanes for pedestrians and bicycles. That would be my goal. It's expensive, it's time consuming. We've got hundreds of years. Let's get it right over the next, as quickly as we can, but anyway, thank you.
Generally speaking, I am not in favor of just adding lanes, and I'm not in favor of widening lanes. I will say, however, as with a lot of things, it's context. I'll give you an example. There was a very small, barely two-lane road on the other side of I-35, Brent Road, that was on the edge of an affordable housing development. That road needed to be widened. That road needed curbs and gutters. That road needed to be upgraded, okay? But at the same time, not every road needs 4 lanes, 3 lanes on either side, or whatever it happens to be. An interesting factoid that I learned from listening to traffic engineers, one of the easiest ways and the quickest ways to slow traffic down and make it more safe is to actually narrow the lanes. And you narrow those lanes, people slow down, and that gives you space for bike and ped. And I agree also, grade separation is really helpful as well to make it as safe as possible.
Yeah, my wife is from the Netherlands, so she insists on biking everywhere. And she recently bought a bike where she could put our kids in. It's called a bakfiets. And I'm always terrified when she's riding around the city because we don't have great infrastructure. We live near South Amar, and she has to cross over to Bolden to drop our kids off in preschool there. And there's a good way to manage and to implement bike lanes. And then Bill's right, there's ways to do it that actually make it even more dangerous for bikers. And a lot of cities have done that somehow. And we can't just be thoughtless about, I know that a lot of times politicians just want to have a checklist of things they put on their resume so that they can win the next election sort of thing. But there's Like my wife rode by a park and ride underneath a freeway near a homeless encampment the other day and just texted me a picture and said, like, who's going to use this, right? Like, this is just a waste of money, but I know there's a politician somewhere going, I put a park and ride, into the city of Austin. And that's the kind of thoughtlessness that's not going to get us anywhere. But yeah, South Lamar's personally just terrifies me. And it would be great if we could do a good job studying where it's worked in cities, not just in the United States, but around the world, to make sure that we actually implement these things properly.
I think it's really important to ask the question about who are we moving? Are we moving lots of cars? How many people do we want to move through the area? And how do we want to do that? How is that particular road used? We, like many of the people up here have said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some areas are built to push more cars through, and others really need to be safer streets that share that. And so we first need to start there. I will give you an example of Brody Lane, which is the border of 5 and 8. And if I were to get my Brompton, and actually this has happened to me, and get on the narrow bike lane, one, I'd probably get honked at because people don't understand what a Brompton is, and it kind of looks like a funny bike. But two, I've got cars rushing past me, and so it's not a safe situation, especially when there's lots of children who are going down Brody, going to Covington Middle School that's right there, or families going to the grocery store. And so it's really important to see what people are doing in those areas. Are they going to school? Are they trying to get gas and groceries? What's happening on those streets? And then when we ask those questions, we can have more strategic, better answers. So.
All right. So this one sort of merges transit and housing, which is appropriate. So in order to boost public transit, we need what's called transit supportive density. We need to put people near transit. One of the major barriers to that in Austin are compatibility regulations. And without going into the details of why Austin's compatibility regulations are so much more restrictive than every other major city in the country, let's just say that a lot of the places on our major corridors where everybody theoretically agrees is appropriate for dense multifamily housing, you can't build tall buildings there because there are single-family lots on the street behind. So how will you as an elected official balance, are these two competing interests? How much can we limit the height of a building on South Congress because there is a homeowner in Travis Heights who doesn't want a tall building next door? Who's start?
I'd love to.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, Stephanie, have you gone first?
I have gone
I haven't gone first. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I was doing a Sierra Club candidate questionnaire today, and one of the questions was parkland. Do you support the idea of density, parkland, central core? Absolutely. Man, that's breathing space. That gives it the relaxation, the living in a dense urban environment, an enjoyable element, right? Why not, for those setback areas, use those as the green space? And I'm a big supporter of neighborhood autonomy and the right to determine self-determination, all right? But it ends at the edge of the neighborhood, in my opinion. Now, reasonable setbacks? Yes. Make them green belts? Yes. I think these are all good ways to approach it to where you can keep the neighborhood happy and also give us the density we require for support of our transit systems and for the affordable housing that is necessary for this community. Thank you.
Go this way now? Sure. We'll mix it up. Housing and transportation are inextricably intertwined. I mean, you cannot plan one without the other, and yet we have done that for years. He didn't want to get into the details of compatibility, but I am going to be just a little bit. Compatibility says if you are a single-family home 540 feet away from another lot, you cannot build over a certain height think about your neighborhoods. Think about Austin. Draw a 540-foot circle around every single-family home and tell me how much room we have left to build anything other than single-family homes. We have, as neighborhoods, come up with plans where we have said a lot on a transit corridor should be dense multifamily, but guess what? There's a single-family home within 540 feet, and that limits how high we can go on that piece of land that we have already agreed should have multifamily homes. We are letting a policy that is so out of line with other cities. You know, you think it's close. It's not even close. Most cities 50 to 100 feet. So we need to dramatically address our compatibility rules to allow for housing and transportation to be really just planned properly.
I want to start by just saying, after hearing me so far, I want to make sure that you're hearing that I'm transit and housing friendly, but not that I want a skyscraper in the middle of your neighborhood. I love neighborhoods too. But I don't think that it should be controversial when talking about more of our growth being transit oriented. People who live in those areas near transit lines need to be able to actually use them. It totally wastes our money if we're putting through Project Connect and people can't get there because it's 10 miles away, or they can't access it because they're in a wheelchair and there's no way for them to get to that spot, or when they get there they need an e-bike or some other micro mobility option and they don't have that. So we need to make sure that we're including all of those things in the conversation, and that we're pushing towards, when we're talking about growth that's going to happen, that we're thinking about it in an equitable way and an accessible way.
Yeah, I mean, when it makes sense along transit corridors to boost the density and also the height of the buildings, we should be more aggressive in doing so, given that we're in the midst of an affordability crisis. That said, there's no such thing as a utopian answer to this, like everything else, and this will require actually sitting down with the community groups that are adamantly against these issues. A lot of people romanticize about European cities. They go there and they think, man, this is so much cooler than anything in America. And I kind of feel that way too when I go, and then I have to remind myself, all these cities that I love to go to in Europe were built before there were cars. And the infrastructure there is just completely different. And to think that we can take Austin and turn it into this utopian ideal that somewhat resembles European cities is laughable, but it's also, it can cause a lot of harm if we keep on believing it. We can definitely make it better. We can increase bonus densities. We can fight to actually have the conversations that need to be had to get the higher buildings and along the transit corridors. But again, it's not like building higher buildings is going to save us from equity issues. Like this kinds of word salad stuff is I'm sorry, just pie in the sky stuff that doesn't really play in the real world, just in politics.
Transit density includes more than just housing, right? You got to have also the commercial, right? So you have the groceries, the other retail amenities like parks, cultural, educational opportunities, other services around, and also the housing that makes the transit work. I would continue to look for ways to accommodate changes in the compatibility standards, like we have reduced to 100 feet for certain VMU2 heights, and I think that's very important that was done. And I want to continue doing that kind of work so that when we do have these options to have the mixed use, particularly when affordable housing is part of that mix, that we have that variance to reduce the compatibility standards that are necessary.
This is similar, in a recent sort of conversation about compatibility has often been paired with parking requirements. And so I guess the question is, Aaron, you said it's delusional for us to imagine that we'll become a sort of transit-oriented European city. But to what extent should we just accept car dependence as a policy, in transportation policy for the city of Austin, and To that point, should we continue to require developers to provide off-street parking? Is there any reason we shouldn't just completely abolish parking requirements?
Parking requirements are very interesting because, of course, we do change the parking requirements when we have these, like affordability unlocked, VMU, VMU2. We change the parking requirements as a part of the community benefit, okay? And so I have no problem changing the parking requirements and diminishing those. One thing I would say, though, we have to be a little careful about just blanket saying we're going to get rid of parking requirements, because there are some streets that do not have sidewalks and don't have ways for people to bike or walk other than in the middle of the street if everybody's parked on the street. So I want to be careful of that. And I also want to be careful of the people who have ADA needs, who need parking off the street. So we just have to, we can do this work about reducing the parking requirements, but we have to be sensitive to the context.
Well, I was all excited about answering, and then I heard your story, and he's exactly right. I have to agree. I think you're dead on. But I do believe that Austin has to accept that we are going to be a car city, all right? And pickup trucks. It's going to be there. And so I think we have to accommodate those people, the people that want that, along with those of us that want bikes and the miniature mobility alternatives and other things of that nature. Public transportation. I would love to ride on a train. I went to college in Boston. I loved riding the trolleys in and out to my university classes. I wish we had that in Austin. Unfortunately, by the way, in District 5, guess what we get for $11 billion? We get a bus. And so they're going to give us, I guess, a transit bus. The orange line does not go through 5. It goes down through the next one over. But anyway, it's close. It's close. We could take a bus over to the orange line. So, but anyway, that's it. Thank you.
When it comes to parking minimums, more often than not, they are unnecessary, and they have the effect of limiting, oftentimes, more affordable housing. You look, Ken talked about streets where if everyone parks on the street, then the only place to bike is in the middle of the street. I see that as a failure of our streets to have sidewalks, not as a failure of parking minimums. And so I think we can design a system that allows for our housing stock. We talked about housing and transportation being so intertwined. Why would we require 2 parking spots for someone who lives in a 2-bedroom unit on a Project Connect line when we are planning on them supporting our Project Connect line? It doesn't make any sense. And so we also forget in this conversation that there's a whole other factor out there aside from city policy that drives parking. Developers aren't going to build projects with 0 parking. They know that there is an economic driver for a certain level of parking, and you talk to any developer in town, they'll tell you there's no way they're going to build something with no parking because they could never get it financed.
I want to start right where Ryan finished, in that developers will look to building the amount of parking that they need for what they are building. I think by having these parking requirements, we're actually taking away opportunities that we have for more homes. There's often times where you can look and see that 2 parking spots meant that another apartment could not be built. I also think it's a question of privilege. I have a car, and I'm going to continue to use that car. But I have the privilege of that. My kid's kindergarten teacher takes the bus to work, and she would love more public transport opportunities. And so when we're looking at this again, we need to look at different angles, not just what we would do in our day-to-day, but what various people need for their day-to-day, and that's involving our entire community. And I know some people don't believe that we can look at things with an equity lens, but I truly do, and I think that makes for a better Austin.
Yeah, so I agree. It'd be like an economic killer, and the trade-off just isn't worth it. as for whether or not we can ever stop being a car culture, I'm not quite as far as Bill in thinking that like pickup trucks forever kind of thing, but I do think that we have it's a cultural difference that, you know, my wife rides bikes. I'm trying to ride bikes more. It's something that I am able to do within my community and get to work, but there's so many people that are attached to their cars in ways that it's just a cultural kind of norm that would take generations to change, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree actually with Ryan and Stephanie, except for the equity part. With not that I don't want things to have people to have equal opportunity. I think sometimes those words can be bandied about and lack the substance to actually bring about the things that we want, and they kind of confuse the issue and are often only used to get votes because they sound really nice.
All right. Here's a question. How do you feel about incumbent Councilmember Ann Kitchen's record on housing and transportation, and how do you feel that you would differ from her, if at all? Who's going on first?
First for this one? I met Ann Kitchen, and she seems like a really nice. Everyone here seems really nice, honestly. Like, it's very good people that actually care about the city. One of the things I learned about her and her team was that you guys were kind of the leaders in banning Uber, which, again, I get the sentiment behind that, but those kinds of issues just show how out of touch a lot of these policymakers can be with reality, and how that clearly didn't work. It led to more more violence, more people were more susceptible to being raped. It was just like a dangerous situation, and it just was a complete and abysmal failure. I do think that she is a good champion for the neighborhoods, for the people that I think Fan would call the NIMBYs, right, if we were to put them into a negative light. But I also think that as important as it is to sit down with them and make sure that they're part of the conversation and not vilify them, in order for Austin's on the precipice of really great things, or it could slip. And I think that if we lean too much into their ideas for how the city should be, we're not going to be able to grow and progress the way that we need to.
I'm going to just clarify that equity is different than equality, so those are different. And then I will answer the question. Ann and I are actually we are really great friends. I've known her for quite a while and have leaned on her for some guidance because I can't know everything coming into this situation and this position. But I will say, I think there are some times when more voices could be heard, but I do appreciate the way that she goes out into community and her thoughtfulness and the amount of time that she spends on various issues. And so that being said, I think it's time for somebody who has not been a politician to come and help serve South Austin.
Like Stephanie, I think Ann is, Councilmember Kitchen, I should say, she's earned that title, is someone who has been very responsive to her district. And when I talk to people, they always tell me, you know, I met Ann at this, I talked to Ann at this. She is very much engaged with the district. Where I have been frustrated is she has been part of a group that has been very resistant to any kind of larger change for Austin. She has consistently, like I said earlier, been part of the nibble at the edge approach and pretend like we're solving the problem. We need solutions that are bigger than VMU2, for instance. Great step, not a solution. And so that has just been my biggest frustration, is a lack of greater progress for Austin. We are growing. Our growth can either be part of the solution or it can exacerbate our problems, but it's going to happen. And so we need to really plan forward, and I just haven't seen that in all the decisions she's made.
When I decided to run, one of the first things I did was call her and told her who I was and that I was interested in running. Most importantly, I said, Ann, the reason I'm Councilmember Kitchens, the reason I'm calling is to let you know we really appreciate what you did for my neighborhood when we had a huge flooding issue and pushed a bunch of people out of their homes. She came to the forefront and, man, made it happen for us. she deserved our thanks. And then she said, well, what do we disagree about? And I said, well, there's a couple things. Way back, you know, the Uber Lyft thing, I thought that was a problem. We really needed to keep Uber Lyft. But I understood the safety issue, but we should have had better negotiations. I said, I also think there's a mess on the new Connect plan for Capital One. I think it's a mess. I think that it's getting bigger and bigger. I think $11 billion is a dream, if they could actually do it for that. I think it's going to be $20 billion by the time they finish. What I wish they had done is in this district, there's a train line that runs right through the heart of town, and it carries hazardous cargo, and I think it should have been relocated years ago. And if that were part of the $11 billion plan, relocating that to the east side of town, I'd be the biggest advocate in the world. But right now, I'm very, very concerned. I started ignoring the sign. I'm sorry.
I want to push back on one thing. There was no movement to ban Uber or Lyft. I was involved in that up to my eyeballs, and I can tell you that's not what happened. So I'll just leave that. And I'm not here to defend Councilmember Kitchen. She can do that herself. I will say that we share fundamental principles, and that from a mobility perspective, everyone should be able to move around the city as to the greatest extent possible. And that should also include the ability to live around the city to the greatest extent possible. No part of the city should be off limits to anyone because they don't have a car or because they can't afford an apartment, okay? So that, we do share that. As far as any kind of particular differences, I will talk about what my views on something is, and then you can decide what the difference is, and that will be enough for me.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here and get to closing statements. I think 2 minutes each. All right, you guys figured who? I have no idea at this point. All right, Stephanie. Oh yeah, right.
Thank you. I want to first just start by thanking everybody for coming out tonight and listening to what we have to say, and I hope that you have more questions for us. And you can reach me at stephanie@stephaniebazan.com. And then I also am saving paper, so I have QR codes over there so you can scan and get to my link tree if you want to learn more, go to my webpage and different things like that. I just want to end by saying that I have a proven track record of building coalitions, of working with my community, of being in community, of rolling up my sleeves and just getting to work. As I said earlier, before this, I wasn't taking those selfies and showing people what I was doing, but I'm doing that now just to bring you along with me on the campaign trail. So I do want to hear things that you have to say. I want to bring your voice to City Hall, and I want you to remember the people who are currently in power and people who have been making decisions. Things are going to continue status quo if we don't change the makeup of our council and the ideas that we have being brought to the table. But thank you again for being here. You can find me on social at Stephanie for Austin.
I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I'm feeling a little bit delirious because I actually just flew in from Israel a few hours ago. I was there for a family memorial service for my late aunt, and we had a really beautiful dinner there last night. And getting back into this is really energizing me. And I also, like Stephanie, think that changes need to be made that actually are fitting for a city that's growing, and a city that's growing no matter what we do. Like, there's no way to block it, there's no way to stop it, and we have to keep things moving forward. Win or lose this election, I think that just running this campaign and learning and meeting people and learning about what people here in Austin think and feel has been extremely valuable. And I hope that even if I'm not part of the government system, that I can help contribute and add value in other ways into the future. I also, one of my themes of my campaign is that this is it for me. I'm not in this game to be a long-term politician, because I think if you're in this game for too long, your incentives necessarily become perverse, and you kind of become jaded, and you kind of look at the world through a lens which is just kind of just through the political system, and that's not what I'm about. And also, my kids are just young enough to not remember that I'm doing this, which I think is a really healthy thing for them. And I just don't want to bring this into my family life for the long term, but to the extent that we can add value here and do great work, I would really appreciate your support, and I'd love to hear from you as well.
Every time I touch this thing, it hurts.
Got the magic touch.
Yeah. I also want to thank everybody, all the organizations who put this together, and I want to thank all of you for coming out here on, well, it's a nice night, but I'm sure there were other things that you could do, but boy, you're here, and that's really inspiring, that we have this group here to hear candidates for your district. This isn't like 8 districts, this is just District 5. This is great, thank you all so much. I want to close by saying that I am not satisfied with this current winner-loser kind of situation that we have found ourselves in. I believe that there is room for us to all speak with each other, to get opinions from all sides, to work together, and to do the things that I was talking about earlier, making sure that everybody has the ability to move around town, to live in the different parts of town, and that everybody's opinion is heard, and everybody's opinion matters, and that everybody gets an opportunity to participate in forming policy. And I think that's extremely important to me. Well, I know it's extremely important to me, and I think it's important for the health of our body politic. I want to thank you again for your interest in this, and I'll give you my website. It's kencraigforcouncil.com, and again, I would be very honored to earn your support. Thank you.
All right, I'll get this out quick. I'm BillWelch.org, BILLWELCH.org. Just check in, and we'd love to get in touch with you. I think you can tell I'm not going to pander to my audience, because I think there's a lot of people that disagreed with some of the things I said, and I said them with rather conviction, right? I will not pander. I will always be honest and truthful and tell you where I'm coming from. And you can expect that when I get into council. But I'll tell you this right now, I complimented you. Wonderful answer on one of those questions, 100% agreement across the board. I can find reasons to agree with every person sitting up here. Not 100%, but I can agree with them. And I can tell you this, I can work with anybody. I can work with all the people that are on the council today. And we can accomplish things that will make a difference for Austin in the better for Austin. I'll give you an example. I served on the Barton Springs Edward Aquifer Conservation District back in right around the time of the war in the Middle East, 2000, 2001. When I got there, there was a focus on environmental and on protecting Barton Springs, and I'm all over that. I thought it was great, but I said, listen, the aquifer is important as a drinking source for many, many human beings. So I say this, more water is better. What about that? Let's focus on more water is better. We came up as a team, as members of that thing, along with our staff, with something called recharge enhancement, where we went in and found the fissures in the riverbeds that we could improve the ability of the aquifer to retain or to receive water. Better yet, instead of dirty water going in there when the floods came through, we had hydraulic doors where you could lift those doors after the dirty water went by and when the clean water was running, and now great water was running into the aquifer. That's a success story of people of different philosophy, mentality, political background, growth, where we grew up, whatever it be, working together for the good of Austin, for the good of our environment, for the good of the future of the children and others that live in our great city. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you all. Thank you.
Like everybody said, thank you all so much for taking the time to be out here. I know, there are many things you could be doing, and you chose to be here. You chose to care about Austin and your community, and that says a lot about you, but it also says a lot about the type of place that Austin is. And so thank you, Aura, and all the other groups for getting this together. I think it's been really enlightening and helpful to see where we all are, right? There are policy differences amongst us, and that's good. This should be a debate of ideas. We shouldn't all just think the same things, want the same things, because when you have different views, different people, and different ideas, you are able to really come to solutions that not only advance your perspective, but you learn something and are able to really make better policy for everybody. Ultimately, this election, though, it doesn't boil down to us. It's not about us. It's about you. It's about your families, your neighbors. It's about which one of us can deliver for you, which one of us can make Austin more affordable, which one of us can make Austin more transit-oriented, more connected, and a city that is really welcoming to everybody. I have spent my career in public service, largely at the legislature, and in order for a Democratic office to pass any bill, you have to have Republican support. We cannot show up and pass something that's our idea simply with Democrats. We have to form coalitions. We have to get people together, talk to the stakeholders, and make something that is acceptable to the body. Now, is it always the thing we want it to be? Absolutely not. Anybody who follows the legislature knows it's very frustrating, but I have worked to build coalitions. That's what I'm going to do as your next council member, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to the candidates for coming out, especially, and not all of you were expecting a friendly audience, so we appreciate you coming out. Let's see, thank you to all the sponsoring organizations. We got Safe Streets Austin, Farm&City, Friends of Zilker, Friends of Austin Neighborhoods, Rethink 35, Aura. I know I already did Environment Texas. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody for coming out.
I feel like before we leave, I just got to give a plug to Jack Craver and his newsletter. I really rely on his daily newsletter to understand what the hell is going on in Austin and at City Council, and I would be a much more ignorant person if I did not subscribe to his newsletter, and y'all should too.
AustinPolitics.net. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. Be sure to drive home safe and tip your bartenders. Thanks, Lester Pearl.